Hey again, Dane Scott, top-rated Fiverr seller, over $500,000 on the platform right now. Still having fun, along with Vervy.
Hello, world.
And today we're going to be talking about the extended review feature on Fiverr. Is it a yay? Is it a nay? What do you think? We'll talk about it coming up.
The Gig Doctor.
Fiverr is considering a new button that lets buyers extend the amount of time they have before they have to make a decision about whether to accept your delivery. Is this a good idea? We'll talk about it. First, just in case you're not aware, I've got a new course up online. It's an hour-and-a-half long course based on my book, Voiceover Mythbusters. The course is $99, but I'll give it to you free. Details at the end of today's video. And be sure to like and subscribe today. Keep on coming back, and I'll keep coming back with more videos. All right, on to it. Fiverr is considering a new button for buyers that lets them extend the amount of time they're given before they have to accept a seller's delivery. So how does that affect us as sellers? And where do I come down on it? Well, that's what I'm talking about here. On October 3rd, Fiverr put up a trial balloon post in their forums, their user forums, that suggests a solution to buyer complaints that the 3 days after delivery of their order doesn't always give them enough time to go over its content and approve it. The original post isn't long, so I'm just going to include the whole thing here. It says, at Fiverr, we're continually listening to feedback from members of our community. One of the frustrations for buyers has been when an order automatically completes before they've had a chance to review their delivery. As a seller, you might have seen revision requests that are not actual revisions, but just asking for more time to review deliveries. Anybody else a little annoyed when that happens? Yeah, it's like, I'm not really asking for a revision request. I just haven't had a chance to get, approval yet from my client. Okay, so continuing on with Fiverr's quote. We learned that these requests are often due to weekends, the need for approval from coworkers, or just busy schedules. To help ease the frustration, we're running a test to allow buyers to request more time to review their order before it automatically completes. Of course, we want to ensure a win-win situation for both buyers and sellers, so we will only roll out this feature after closely monitoring the implications of this test: the number of orders completed, cancellations, disputes, tickets with customer service, and other quality metrics. Okay, let's start with the why. Apparently, Fiverr is hearing from a certain percentage of their buyers who say that they just aren't given enough time to approve delivered orders. Using my own area as an example, that occasionally means that after I've delivered my voiceover to them, they take more than 3 days to approve what I did for them. And I can see how that could happen. Let's say I deliver late on a Friday and the buyer doesn't see it until Monday morning. Unless they happen to be able to get it approved the same day, the 3 days have now passed for them and it's already too late. And sticking with the voiceover example, what if a person who hired me is a video producer who's doing a job for some manufacturing firm, maybe a large company where everything is done by a committee? So I send the video producer the recording on a Monday. He or she checks it over and sends it on to the manufacturer, and there it sits for a while before they finally get back to him or her and approve it, or request revisions, whichever. Meanwhile, the poor video producer's stuck in the middle there, and it's not a fun place to be. Stuff like that happens. It's not a question of whether it occurs. It's just a matter of whether it's something that needs to be addressed, and if so, by some sort of new feature. Depends on what they do, I guess. Here are some possibilities they could be considering, though. Just speculation here. Based on the data they're able to gather, they might determine that an extra day or two might take care of most of the problems sellers are having. So they might just decide to make it 4 days or 5 days instead of 3. That would probably be the simplest and most painless approach. An extra day or two isn't going to kill us as sellers. If that statistically is enough to solve most of the issue, I don't see that as really much of a problem, do you? Number 2, simply add a couple days across the board for all orders whose approval times span the weekend. Okay, so again there, I don't really have any problem with that idea. Though if it were implemented, it would be reasonable to do the same for seller delivery times that fall on weekends, don't you think? Number 3, here's another interesting possibility. Now, don't laugh, but what about making the approval time extension an extra? So standard approval time stays 3 days as it is now, but the seller can order an extra day if they suspect they will need more time, say $5 per additional day for a time extension, but let the seller charge whatever they like for that privilege, or opt to give it away as a premium. Set the extra 2 or 3 days at $0. Now, let's say that 10% of buyers feel that they need more than 3 days for approval, and let's say that on average, the orders with extensions add $10 to the sale. Well, that would mean a little bit more income for the seller, who would be compensated for their inconvenience, and it would mean a pretty enormous sum for Fiverr. Think about that. If you multiply that over hundreds of thousands of transactions, it might turn into a nice little profit center for Fiverr. So there's a possibility. Here's number 4. Fiverr provides a button that the buyer can click on that instantly gives them more time to approve delivery. That would be very convenient for the buyer, painless time extension, and depending on how Fiverr sets it up, they might even be able to click the button again to get even more time. If that's their idea, though, that is one that I'm less comfortable with. It's not mainly that it would make me suspicious of the buyer, especially if they got multiple time extensions, but I think it would be a bad signal to the sellers. Let me stick with number 4, that last one, for a minute. The time extension button, which frankly I suspect is what they actually have in mind. Now, suppose Fiverr was to do that for buyers. Buyers are now able to grant themselves additional time, more than once maybe, with the click of a button. Again, very convenient for the buyers, but the sellers are going to be asking why, for them, the only way they can get a time extension is by appealing to the buyer through the resolution center.
Actually, doesn't sound too good, does it?
The request requires the seller to fill out a form, propose a time extension, and explain why they need it. And the buyer has the freedom to refuse the request. Meanwhile, the timer continues to tick, and if the seller isn't careful, a gig can run itself out of time while the seller waits for the buyer to respond. So that would hardly be equitable, would it? Personally, I'm not someone who feels that everything has to be perfectly even-steven, though. I'm not constantly fighting for my rights or screaming unfair about things. Life isn't always fair. And winners, frankly, don't spend a lot of time worrying about stuff like that, at least as far as how it affects their own efforts. They just fight forward and they make things happen. But I do think Fiverr will be overstepping things if they decide on a solution to this problem that doesn't take both the buyers and sellers into consideration. I know human nature enough to think that sellers will get up in arms if this issue isn't addressed fairly. If Fiverr requires buyer approval for delivery extension, they should require seller approval when the buyer wants to have more time to get an okay on a delivery. Or they should just make automatic time extensions available to both buyers and sellers. So my take, I've handled thousands of orders on Fiverr, and it's not really all that often that anyone, I'd say less than 10% of the time, requests a revision just to bide time. It's probably less than 10% while they're getting their approval from a client, for example. But when they do, it doesn't have to turn into a big deal. I just write back graciously and give them a few days. If more than a couple days go by, I politely prod them. If it stretches longer without explanation, I just deliver again. That approach handles 99.999% of all situations that I run across. So in the final analysis, I think this whole thing is a solution in search of a problem. But if Fiverr is going to take measures to address it officially, I just hope they make it equitable. Otherwise, they'll just be swapping an empty buyer complaint box for a full one from sellers. All right, very quickly, here's the deal. If you order a single 1-hour coaching session with me, which is $99, where we go through your current situation and set a trajectory for you and give you some ideas on where you can start to improve your skills and start heading toward a new demo or whatever it is that you need done, a $99 idea, I'm going to give you a $99 course for free. It's the VoiceOver Mythbusters course based on the book of the same name, and it goes through, it's like 90-minute long course, covers 15 different areas where people may be really doing overkill when it comes to how they set themselves up, what they invest in, the way they do what they do. There are lots of ways to kill both time and money that are recommended all over the internet on YouTube and elsewhere. What are you doing in your voiceover career, or even if you're just starting out in your voiceover setup, that may be just wasting your time and money? Where you may be being led astray by some purists who have absolute ideals about things and tend to drive, especially newcomers, to distraction with all of the complicated things they recommend. What if you could do things a lot simpler and save yourself some money? That's what this course is all about. Also, it gives you encouragement to think independently as a voiceover artist. I'm giving you the course along with a single voiceover coaching session. I'll have a link to the coaching session down below. When you order it, just remind me about this promotion and I'll make sure you get the course as well.
Feed me.
In the comments today, tell me what you think about this proposal by Fiverr, and under what circumstances do you think something like this might be done fairly? And I'll catch you on the next one. Thanks, I'm Dane Scott.
You give me a call.
Hello.
Hello?
Hello, I think.
Hello, cutie pie.
Until I heard the voice, I'd never done a crazy thing in my whole life.
Goodbye.